Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode.
In today's episode, in Team Season Preview 28 out of 32, I was joined by Indianapolis Colts fan JP McGrath as we preview the team's upcoming season. JP discusses the quarterback situation.
He fits the offense and he can play 17 games.
JP also discusses reports that head coach Shane Steichen is on the hot seat.
Even if the Colts say go 8-9 again, which would be incredibly frustrating, I don't think firing Shane Steichen would be the answer.
And JP predicts the team's overall season record in our win, loss or tie segment. Hope you all enjoy.
Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, and we're doing another team's season preview, and the team in focus today is the Indianapolis Colts. Now, with me, I've got a first-timer on the podcast. With me today, it's Colts fan JP McGrath. JP, how are things?
Good to hear from you, Andy. Good, my friend.
Yeah, it's good to have you on for the first time. You are a newcomer to the podcast, and we like to sort of ask all our new guests the same questions. And that main question is why you chose, out of all the teams in the NFL, your team. So for you, JP, what made you a Colts fan?
I mean, I think everyone I've ever met asked me that question because it's a very interesting team to support. Honestly, comes back to, I remember Super Bowl 41 being shown on like an advert on the telly when I was about 7. And not sure why, but always just loved watching whenever the NFL highlights came up on telly, because it like these big old gladiator men just smashing into each other. I just always thought it was quite enthralling. And whoever won the Super Bowl between the Bears and the Colts, I said that would be my team. And the Colts won, and I guess the rest is history. So yeah, long-suffering Indiana sports fan since then.
Oh, so you're fully in on like the Pacers and teams like that as well?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, it's been a wild ride with the Pacers the last couple of years with Tyrese Halliburton. So that's been a plus. But no, it's been a tough last 10 years for sure for being an Indianapolis Colts fan.
You know, I felt so bad for the Pacers watching that NBA Finals. I just feel like if he didn't get injured in that one play, I do feel like you would have won it. I genuinely think that. I mean, I'm not the biggest basketball expert, so I could be saying it wrong here, but I just felt like when I watched that game, how good they were when he was on the field. He was getting some good numbers in before the injury, but I think that I don't want to put an asterisk on any team winning anything. Very rarely do. I did it with Bayern Munich when they won the Champions League in 2020, but I tend to normally not like give asterisks. But I feel like I kind of do, in a way, give the Thunder the asterisk. I know they're one of the best teams in the regular season. They're one of the best ever win totals in the regular season. But I just felt like how that finals went in that Game 7, I feel like, yeah, that was a shame. Even as neutral, shame we didn't get like a really thrilling final, Game 7.
Well, it's just the beauty of sports. We can do what ifs for the next 50 years. And no, it was a special run. It felt like a team of destiny for a long time. But I'm not going to begrudge losing to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're a phenomenal team, and it's quite scary that might be the worst team of theirs that wins a championship because they're loaded. But I think the biggest devastation was that he's now going to miss this regular season, which is tough because he's such an exciting player to watch. And, you know, the first big Indiana sports kind of cult figure since Andrew Luck, and someone the whole state can rally behind. So that's kind of his cultural importance is as big as losing him on the court.
Well, let's head into the offseason as a whole. Let's look at the incomings and outgoings of the Colts offseason. So including re-signings and free agency signings, you brought in the likes of Jarvarius Ward, Daniel Jones, Ashton Doolin, Mo Ali Cox, Neville Gallimore, Khalil Herbert, and David Long. And out, you lost the likes of Will Fries, as well as Ryan Kelly, Matt Gay, Joe Flacco, EJ Speed, Kylan Granson, as well as Sam Ellinger and Grant Stewart. And then in total, you took 9 players in the draft, and the first 3 taken were Tyler Warren, JT Tumaloa, as well as Justin Wally in the 3rd round. Also took Jaden Travis, DJ Giddens, Riley Leonard, Tim Smith, and Hunter Waller. Actually, 8 picks, not 9. But overall, for you, JP, your take on your team's off-season as a whole.
Well, I actually the biggest loss is one you didn't mention, and it's Jim Irsay, who had been with the Colts.
Sorry, I didn't even think. Apologies to the Colts fans. I kind of.
Well, listen, he was an imperfect man, an imperfect person, but his passion for the Colts, for the city of Indianapolis, for the state of Indiana never wavered. You could tell we had a hand in a lot of the community kind of networks that the Colts put on. He was incredibly responsive to fans' needs, and he'll always be beloved. But it is quite an exciting change with his daughter Carly Irsay kind of taking on the lead on the football side. Because Jim, to his core, was loyal to his guys, and there's been some instances, especially with the general manager position, whether they should still be there. I'm talking, of course, about Chris Ballard. In terms of a 10-year drought without winning the division, the playoff drought, the kind of the carousel of quarterbacks that we've had since Andrew Luck, but kind of since Philip Rivers. But in terms of kind of on the field off-season changes, I mean, the Colts never tend to make big sweeping changes in the off-season. Now, this one was a little bit different. They've always been a draft and develop front office. But Gus Bradley's out as a defensive coordinator, and that kind of cover 3 system had run its time. And you bring in Lou Anarumo from the Bengals, who 2 years ago was considered one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. On just a personnel standpoint, the big fish is Charvarius Ward coming in from San Francisco, and of course in the draft bringing in someone like Tyler Warren to really round out one of the most, I think, underrated groups of weapons in the NFL is very exciting. So to the long answer, the short to answer your question, although I might have taken it a bit too long. It's been a good off season, one of change, but one us Colts fans, I think on the whole, pretty positive about for now.
Yeah, I mean one big change could potentially have come in the quarterback room. I mentioned before. You did lose Joe Flacco, but you bought Daniel Jones. Now, there was talk of prior to preseason who was going to start week 1. Was it Richardson? Was it Daniel Jones? There was some injury concerns about Richardson. And then he goes and injured his pinky in the game against Baltimore Ravens in the preseason game recently. And British player David Ojabo was the man who called the sack. Sadly for him, not a regular season sack, but sack. And there was damage to his pinky, and now it just raises even more questions about who will start week 1, and you can even say as far as who's going to start week 17, because so much could change, and neither quarterback has really had the rub of the green. Daniel Jones, of course, way more experience. But how are you seeing that? I mean, it's, if I'm honest, not the best quarterback room in the NFL. I think it's way better than the Colts room. But how are you feeling about that? How are you feeling about the Richardson situation, his first couple of years, and Daniel Jones coming in? Or who do you see starting for the majority of 2025?
I think it's trending towards Daniel Jones, which, if is the case, I think you're slowly putting Anthony Richardson in the bust category. The thing about Daniel Jones is, you just said it, he gives the team a floor. He fits the offense, and he can play 17 games. And, if that's what we can get for the season, then I genuinely think the rest of the roster is really well put together. Unfortunately, the quarterback is the biggest question on this team, and it's the most important position. With Anthony Richardson, it's just too many injuries. That kind of physical play style just isn't conducive to long-term success in this league. Look at Cam Newton, for example, and now it's starting to impact his availability. And then as a passer, he just hasn't made the leap forward. And you need consistency to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And yes, you love the design run game that he gives you, and when it's going, it's matched with Jonathan Taylor. It's one of the best rushing attacks in the league. But yeah, he can drop a 50-yard dime, but it's too erratic. And whether that's mechanics or timings, whatever it is, it's just not good enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. So yeah, trending towards Daniel Jones, and once again in Indianapolis, it feels like a fever dream. But the quarterback is the biggest question entering the season.
Yeah, I mean, with Richardson, I think I said it before in this podcast in some of our previous episodes, is that I think when he tapped out of a game, I think for me that was when I started to really doubt his just mentally his credentials playing in the NFL. And this is someone who was a big fan of him going into the NFL, being a Florida Gators fan. I really wanted to do well, and I had high hopes last season. So I did think there was shades of having a Cam Newton 2015 season, or maybe a Josh Allen the kind of build he is and the kind of style of play. Obviously, Josh Allen is it's amazing how Josh Allen has managed to be injury free, because the amount of hits he takes, it's incredible that he has not had the same fate as like Cam Newton had towards the end of his career, or we're seeing with Richardson so far. So with Richardson, I think what mentioned Josh Allen, who's kind of the guy you compare him to, is Cam Newton to the size. Josh Allen is accurate. He's got a strong arm, and he can make plays, sort of these miracle plays out of nowhere. And even though I'm a Dolphins fan, I find he is, for me, as someone who should dislike him, I find him very exciting to watch. But with Richardson, it's not even just if he got injured a lot, but he had these games where he was having, like Joe Burrow, for example. Joe Burrow has got quite a long injury record in the NFL, but you can sort of be okay with it because you know that when he is healthy, he can do what he did at the Super Bowl appearance, AFC Championship later. Whenever he's on the field healthy, Bengals win 8 times out of 10. But with Richardson, if you can't throw either and you can't stay healthy, it's a bad mix, and it's not one where certainly you would want out of someone who drafted in the top 5 a few years ago. But Daniel Jones, he's got experience, and like you say, he is very durable. I think he had maybe one season with injury problems mainly, but I think one thing he does give you, and I think this is the one thing that I think, well, 2 things as well as his sort of, he seems like a good locker room guy, but I think one thing that keeps him getting your jobs is his legs. Now, I know there was that one funny moment where he fell over whilst running, but I've seen a lot of plays, and Daniel Jones has used his legs to a good effect. So that's one thing he can offer. Is that now? Daniel Jones, is he a franchise future guy for the Colts? Absolutely not. But you certainly think about if you want a guy just for 1 or 2 years. Now, of course, there's going to be the comparison made with Arch Manning, and I don't know whether he's in the draft next year or a year later, but he may follow in his dad's footsteps. So if you want to sort of have a guy just to be in there just until the next guy comes in, then he's a guy forward, because he's not going to win you 9-10 games. But on the flip side, you were saying this about the Colts before they got Richardson. They also just picked the wrong guy. So next, I think, I don't see a way where Richardson does play. Is starting next season. I don't see him starting many games this year. Daniel Jones, it's a world where he comes in, Daniel Jones, plays the first 4 games because of Richardson's injury, and he has a fairly okay first few games, and he just plays the rest of the year. So, yeah, it's an interesting situation with the Colts. One I think many probably not looking forward to, particularly Colts fans. But no, certainly it's an interesting situation.
Yeah, completely agree. And I should also say, like, I without doing revisionist history, drafting back to that draft class when Renzi Richardson came out, I was ecstatic when we drafted him, because when you've done years of bridge quarterbacks and then you get handed this athletic freak, perfect 10 RAS score and the highlight plays. I remember one. I think it was in the swamp against Utah where he literally somehow gets out of like a guaranteed sack and finds a player in the end zone. Then, yeah, it's easy to drink the Kool-Aid. But the issue it has is that Anthony Richardson is now tied to Shane Steichen. And if Shane Steichen cannot find a way to develop Anthony Richardson and we revert back to the bridge quarterback in Daniel Jones, and if you do that, then you better be winning 9 or 10 games and getting in the playoffs, because this roster and this team should not be settling for any less this year. That's how highly I think of the team. And I also, again, I should say, I think very highly of Shane Steichen. I mean, the guys had to worked with Joe Flacco and Gardner Minshew, and we've been knocking on the door of the playoffs. So I think he's an excellent coach. I think he's an excellent X's and O's guy. But yeah, if you can't figure out your quarterback, then the hammer's going to come down on someone.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that play from Richardson. Yeah, that one was, albeit my very small amount of time as a Gators fan, that is one of my favourite ever plays by a player. Maybe my favourite ever. I've probably forgotten that one top of my head. But I'm glad you mentioned Steichen because that is our next talking point. It's a good segue into that. Now, Pro Football Focus put a list together. And this was, if I get the date right of this article, this was, doesn't say, for some reason, doesn't say when that article's done. But it put together a list of 10 head coaches heading into the 2025 season who were on the hot seat. And this included Shane Steichen. Now, it points out on the article that in his first 2 seasons as head coach, they're 17-17 as a record. But you alluded to there as well. He's been given a bad hand. And we know how good of a kind of coach he is because we saw his time with the Philadelphia Eagles when he made the Super Bowl. Just about, how good of a coach you can be. And I kind of think it's the same thing as Brian Daboll. Or I think Steichen's done a better job in a way, although Daboll did get to the playoffs and the divisional round. But both Daboll and Steichen haven't been given at all a good quarterback. Now, Daboll's been given Russell Wilson, who isn't the quarterback he once was, but he's probably the steadiest quarterback he's ever had. And I think with Steichen, Gardner Minshew was probably the best in that group because I think they had a good time a few years ago with him. But yeah, he's not been given at all a quarterback. But I think at some point, especially with the lack of wins, it's just going to put more pressure on him. I think they'd be silly to get rid of him. I do think that he is a good head coach. He's just been given bad hand. But on the flip side, it was him who drafted Richardson. He was there in the draft room. So exactly what you said. He's tied with Steichen. He's tied with Richardson. And I think, sadly for him, I do think he'll get the job and he'll do well. But I think, certainly that will be on him and Chris Ballard, the decision to draft someone who can't seem to stay healthy.
Yeah, and I think Steichen is an excellent play caller, and the offense is kind of the archetypal modern spread offense. Almost exclusively shotgun, spread the defense out, exploit open spaces with RPOs. Strain that middle of the defense, and then hat on hat in the running game, inside zone, all that stuff. And I think the roster, again, the weapons, the receivers, the tight end, the running back, most of the offensive line is really, really strong. I mean, that is a playoff caliber offense outside of the unknowns at center and right guard. And I'm also really, really buoyed by the hire of Lou Anarumo, who, whereas Colts fans with Gus Bradley, the guy lives and dies by the cover 3, going back to his days in Seattle, and you look at the best defensive coordinators in the league right now. You have to run a hybrid scheme. It has to be flexible depending on who you're playing, and Anarumo can play pressing and aggressive one week, and then he can be conservative the next, and then he can blitz loads, and then he can just rush 4. And it requires a really good defense from a talent perspective, which I think the Colts have, again, barring a few positions which could be a bit of a concern. But that's why I think, of course, you would say it is a make or break here, but I really don't think, even if the Colts say go 8-9 again, which would be incredibly frustrating, I don't think firing Shane Steichen would be the answer. Do I think the GM should walk after that? Definitely. But you also have to take into account that the team has just lost its leader in Jim Irsay, and it'll be very interesting to see whether his daughters will want to make such a grandiose move after one season. That again is completely separate off the field, but yeah, we'll see what happens. And but I'm confident despite the weaknesses at quarterback that this roster's in good shape, and this should be a good year.
Yeah, you mentioned Dan about Lou Anarumo, and this feels like 2 minutes ago when he was being lauded for his time with the Bengals. When they made the Super Bowl against the Rams, and then the following season when they probably should have made the Super Bowl again if it wasn't for some questionable officiating in our head. But you think about the defense you've got, and you've got some good players. You mentioned Chadarius Ward before. Zaire Franklin, one of the top tacklers last season. You got DeVos Buckner, who's had a great career. Kwity Paye had 8.5 sacks in 2024, and then Liu Lato was a high draft pick, and probably didn't have an amazing impact last year, but I think had 4 sacks. But he someone who was 15th overall for a reason. So I feel like going back to Brian Daboll and the Giants. The Giants have this quartet of Brian Burns, Thibodeau, Abdul Carter now, as well as Dexter Lawrence, and I feel like they're going to have to rely on the whole offense sells tickets, defense wins the championship motto. Because I think you look at that for your Kenny Moore as well in the backfield. I think this is the defense that if the quarterback is struggling, or I think this could be a situation where maybe 3 or 4 games this year, maybe 5 games this year, especially against maybe weaker opponents, the defense could just win you games like that. And I think so. You think about playing against the Texans in both games, their line is pretty bad, so you could probably get at them and cause, especially at home in Lucas Oil, you could probably cause some problems there. And for me, that is probably easily your best part of your team. But I think they're one that could easily win you 5-6 games this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to go kind of position group on the defense, the edge defenders are insanely deep. Liati Latu was slightly underwhelming, I guess, in his rookie year, mainly because Jared Verse was just a beast in Los Angeles. But you have him, you have Kwity Paye, who you're still kind of waiting for the breakout, but you're always going to get a high effort run defender on early downs. And then you have Samson Abukum, who's returning after an Achilles tear last year, and he had a career in 2023. He's a real wild card. Again, you add in JT2 and Mulao in the second round, and the interior is a strength. It's a thin group because if Grover Stewart or DeForest Buckner go down, like they've had a tendency to, I mean, Buckner was an injury and Grover Stewart was actually a suspension, but that's like the perfect tandem. You have the run defending nose tackle paired with the pass rushing interior. And then on the back end, again, you said Travaris Ward, Kenny Moore, who's been the leader of that unit for years now, Jalen Moore, who was Jalen Jones, who was asked to play a lot as this team's CB1 as a 7th round pick out of A&M, now gets to be a cornerback 3 in a deep group. So yeah, I think the defense is massively improved. The linebacker group is probably the weak point, other than Zaire Franklin, who's, like you said, one of the best tacklers in the league. Has good size, but he's just a bit of a stiff athlete, so it hurts him. And the Colts are going to run more 3 safety sets this year. Under Lou Anarumo, they're really high on Jaden Carlisle, who's kind of moved from safety to linebacker where he played in college. So yeah, that is probably the weak point of the team. But as a whole, incredibly deep defensive line. You hope that one of those edge rushers is going to take a move in Latu or Kwity Paye, and then you bring in a true alpha corner in Travaris Ward to head up a deep defensive back room. I'm very excited to see what Lou Anarumo is going to be able to do with this team.
Well, speaking of which, let's head to our win, loss, or tie segment. So for those of you that are listening to this podcast or watching it for the first time, each fan that comes on predicts their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with win, loss, or tie. So week 1 is a season opener at home against the Dolphins. Win, lose, or tie?
I'm sorry to say this, Andy. I know that you're the team, but I think we're going to win that one.
Yeah, I mean, this actually was one I was wanting to go to originally. I've got a good friend of mine, Naeem, who is a Colts fan, has never been to the Colts Stadium before. So our plan was to see when the game got released on the schedule release day and try and maybe go to that. But that weekend, I've got a wedding, not my own wedding, but a family friend's wedding. So sadly, can't do that. But no, we will go at some point. I think our plan to go next year. I think last year and this year, both games were at Lucas Oil. We were going to try and go to maybe Dolphins Colts, but I think next year there's a chance we could do it again if we have the same position in the division tables. But otherwise, I think we'll go, if it's not us or the start of the line, I think we'll just go to a different Colts game. But no, looking forward to this one. I think it's actually one of the ones I'm most confident about.
There we go.
As a Dolphins fan, I think we'll do better than people think we will. But I think certainly week one will be one that I feel we could, I think, get a win on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more boisterous about the team than most. I think a lot of fans are probably pipping the Colts to be one of the worser teams, and I understand with the quarterback question, but I do think this roster's good enough with a high floor Daniel Jones to, and you'll see in my predictions, to win 8, 9, or maybe even 10 games. So I'm confident, and I think. I mean, I'll just say I think the Colts could start 3-0. The next week they play Denver, which will be a tricky game, and then a trip to Nashville to a rebuilding Tennessee Titans side. So yeah, I'm very confident. I'm saying very confident. I've just absolutely consigned us now to 0-3, and this is just going to be completely embarrassing. But yeah, no, I think they're it's not the worst opening stretch of games to have. A Miami team which is alternated between absolutely beautiful to watch and then completely toothless, and then a Denver side which is coached by Sean Payton, one of the greatest coaches in the modern era. That's the game. If I think we were going to lose one, it would be one of those, and then I feel confident about heading to Nashville and winning. So yeah, first 2 games, I'm going to go 3-0.
Okay, so yeah, week 2 Broncos win. Week 3 at Titans lost. So then I'll give you the 3-0 start, and then week 4 you stay on the road, but this time against the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, I can see this being the first loss. I think the Rams have a really good roster, and I've long believed that Sean McVay, if he's not the best coach in the league, he's the second best. Traveling across to LA, I'll give us a loss there. I'll let us lose one.
Okay, so week 5 is a home game against the Raiders.
Yeah, I can see us winning this one. I really think the Raiders' offensive line is something that their RD line can dominate. Pete Carroll, again, this is a game which you'd be nervous about because Pete Carroll just doesn't lose games, and that Raiders team is gonna have a baseline this year that even those old kind of Seahawks teams, when they'd pass their prime, they would still be contending and winning games. But yeah, I'm gonna go for a win in that game.
So week 6, you're staying at home, but this time against the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to lose one of them. I'm trying to think now. Maybe I should have gone for a loss with Denver. I think we match up quite well against Arizona. I'll go for a loss just because, listen, we're not starting off 6-1. If we do, then wow, that would be incredible. But yeah, okay, I'll go for a loss in that game.
Okay, so in week 7, you're going back to LA and taking on the Chargers.
The Chargers, that'll be a loss. I think the physicality of Jim Harbaugh teams are always hard to predict wins against. They can win a muddy game where they muddy it up and kind of beat you up all game. They also have a really good roster as well. So yeah, I'll take a loss in that one.
I feel bad for the traveling Colts fans because you think about there's 3 games separating a road game in LA. You think that it would just put both games on back to back. I kind of feel like you could easily, if they did that, you could easily make a nice week and a half holiday out of it. But I think it's you have to go from LA back to Indianapolis and back to LA again in a few weeks. It just seems a bit harsh on the Colts fans. So week 8, you're once again facing the Titans, but this time you're at home.
Yeah, I think if you have any hope of making the playoffs, you need to sweep the Titans. They're the weakest team in the division and one of the weaker teams in the NFL. So yeah, confident we can get a sweep there.
So week 9, you're on the road to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, this screams 17-14 loss, doesn't it? Going on the road to Pittsburgh is always tricky. Yeah, all right, we'll lose that one.
So then week 10, you're heading to Germany. Now you're taking on the Falcons, technically a home game, but a neutral venue for both teams. First of all, are you going to this game in Germany at all?
I don't have any plans to go, if I'm honest. This game is just too hard to predict because crazy things happen in international games. What's my record? What's the record at the moment?
So far, with 9 weeks gone, you're 5-4.
5-4. Okay, I'll go. I'll say a loss. I'll say it's one of those weird games. Maybe Bijan Robinson goes for. Maybe it's one of those games where Grover Stewart goes down and Bijan goes for 200 yards, and we just lose track of it. So yeah, I'll go for a loss there.
Okay, so after Germany, you do have a week 11 bye, and then you come into the worst situation, week 12, to come back from a bye. Week 4 is a road game against the Chiefs.
Well, listen, the Indianapolis Colts, when they play the Kansas City Chiefs, weird things happen. We have a tendency to pull out wins out of nowhere. I don't think it's going to happen this time, though. I'll say we'll lose that one. But I'm telling you, we have their number. The greatest team of the last 5 years. I don't know if you've had a Kansas City Chiefs fan on this pod yet, but I'd hope they'd remember that the weird things happened in that game with Indianapolis.
My most recent memory was it week 3 in 2022 when the Colts beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I can't remember whether it was in Lucas Oil or whether it was in Arrowhead. But
it was in Arrowhead. I think it was in Arrowhead.
In Arrowhead. Oh my goodness. Colts record. I'm going to check. I need to look at this history between the Colts and the Chiefs because that hasn't really triggered my memory. So yeah, 20-17 win in Indianapolis in that week 3 game in 2022. They beat the Chiefs in the divisional playoff game in 2019. No, sorry, that was one before. So they beat them in 2019 in October. That was 19-13. Then the Chiefs did beat the Colts one time before that, the playoffs. But apart from that, 2014 win, 2013 win, 2012 win, 2010 win, 2007 win. Beat them in the wildcard round 2007. So yeah, it's not a bad little record you got against the Chiefs.
Even in I feel like in recent years we've had a pretty. So we had 2 losses, but yeah, the last 2 times we've played them, we've won, and yeah, it's a good record against them. Actually, I'm going to change it. We're going to win that game. We're going to continue. We're going to continue our streak of beating the greatest dynasty since the Patriots. So yeah, put that as a win actually.
Well, week 13, you are facing your first of 2 games against the Texans, and this one's at home.
I think this series will be split. I think it's kind of hard to say which way it will go because they're both dome teams. I'd say we'll lose at home and win away. It sounds like something we do. So maybe for the opposing game, we'll do a win and loss. But yeah, I think we'll split those.
Well, that will be in week 18. So before we do that, week 14 is a road game against the Jags.
Yeah, I mean we're gonna lose, aren't we? We cannot beat them. I don't know whether I would if I would take missing out on the playoffs if it's just to finally beat Jacksonville. Finally beat the Jags in Jacksonville. Is it going to be the year? I've been so confident all podcast. I'm going to go with yes. Bugger it, why not? Yeah, we'll finally break the curse and beat them in Jacksonville.
Okay, so that means rather than being 6-7, you're now 7-6 going into your week 15 game on the road to the Seahawks.
It's a tough game. I really don't know what to make of the Seahawks this year, that late on as well. Going on the road in Seattle is always tricky. I'll put that one down as a loss.
Okay, so then week 16, you're at home to the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, that's such a tough game. Yeah, I think that'll be a loss.
Okay, so we've already done the predictions for week 18 away to the Texans, but week 17 is a home game against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It would be classic us to break the curse and then lose to them at home. Yeah, but now I'm running out of games, and I've been kind of saying 9-8, 10-7, and now I think if I predict us to lose this, we might not do either. I'll go for a win.
I think I messed up here. I've got 8-8, and I've done all 18 games.
Maybe listen. Let's say what's a game I predicted us to lose? It will probably go back and win. Why didn't I say we'll beat Atlanta in Berlin, make it 9-8?
Okay, there we are. So 9-8. Did that get you into the playoffs? Because that is sort of it's sort of like a sort of an equator line between getting in and not getting in with 9-8. You can get in with 9-8. You can just miss out with 9-8.
It depends on the rest of the division. I think the Titans are going to be pretty poor, and I think with the AFC South where things happen, and it'll be a 3-horse race this year, and you could win that division in a 9-8 record, and a 5-1 conference. A 9-8 league record and a 5-1 division record. That's why those games are so crucial. You would think 9-8 is the precipice of the wild card, and you really are just banking on the rest of your division being slow. But if the Texans have a year like they did with Shad's rookie season, or the Jags, which have I believe have been the most successful team in this division. Actually, the Tennessee Titans probably, but the Jags, are capable of a 9 or 10 win season. Then you have to be you have to beat the teams in your division and worry about the rest later. And the playoff drought now sits at 4 years. I think maybe it's 5, but a 10-year drought since winning the AFC South, which for a team like us, which dominated that division for the better part of 15 years, that's what I want. I want to be able to say that we're the kings of our division again. Hasn't happened under Chris Ballard's tenureship, which I think if it doesn't this year, it will probably be his last. But no, confident, as I've said all pod. Quarterback aside, I think this is a really underrated roster. I really believe in our depth in the skill positions. I think the line while the line might not be as dominant as it has been, still has Quentin Nelson and an up and coming star in Bernard Ryman, and you're blocking for Jonathan Taylor, which had a bounce back year last year, and a rejuvenated defense under what I think is going to be an excellent hire at defensive coordinator. So confident, but of course it could all blow up in your face with what happens with us at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think that's certainly interesting. I do look at your division with a lot of envy, because first of all, Miami should be in a South division with where it is on the map. It shouldn't be in the East. I think there's a lot of teams that should be changing around when it comes to the divisions, and I do feel like if we'd been in that division, either NFC or AFC, we probably would have won division title 4 of the last 6 years, because we've had 10-win seasons, not won the AFC East. We've had 9-8 seasons, not even made the playoffs, not won the AFC East. We should be in the South Division. I don't know why we're not. I don't know why we're in the East, because on the map of America, it's not in the East. And the Titans is more in the East. They should be in the AFC East. So I think they should swap it around and have the Titans in the AFC East and have us in the AFC South, because geographically that just makes so much more sense.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got the Dallas Cowboys playing in the NFC East, which is even funnier.
Yeah, of course.
Texas is basically the beginning of the West, and they play in Washington and New York twice a year. But again, comes back to the NFL. I mean, I think it's quite tricky. I haven't got a map of all the NFL teams, but there, a lot are concentrated in that kind of Midwest, Northeastern area. So if you were going to do it geographically, it'd be quite difficult. I guess like Florida playing the SEC East, like it is Easternly, but yeah, going up to Buffalo, New England, and New York is hard, and also just the different like inclements as well. Like you play against teams that play outdoors and in the cold, and you're a team in South Florida, which snow is incredibly irregular for.
Well, let's head on to our final segment, which is Fan Asks Man. Now, our last fan that came on was Falcons fan Rob Monk in our Falcons season preview. Now, he wants to ask you, JP, who do you think, you may have already answered this question, but who do you think will be the dark horse of this upcoming season?
Oh, is in a team?
Yeah.
Good question. I'm gonna say it's gonna burn me because I loved him so much in college, but I'm gonna say the Chicago Bears.
The team you were almost a fan of back in 2006.
Team I was always a fan of, and Devin Hester will always be my favorite NFL player of all time, which again is weird because he absolutely housed the opening kickoff for a touchdown. But I'm going to say the Bears because it's hard. You're in arguably the toughest division in the NFL, but I'm a big believer in Ben Johnson. I'm a big believer in Caleb Williams. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so watched him, completely tear us apart in his Heisman winning campaign. I think the roster on paper is incredibly well balanced. They have some incredibly talented weapons on the offensive side. With a rejuvenated line, which has cost them in previous years. With Ben Johnson coming in, I think they're going to be a really exciting team to watch. So yeah, I'll say the Bears as a dark horse is hard because the Bears haven't been good. Well, haven't won a Super Bowl since 1985. But I think everything's there from a roster standpoint. I think the D line is stacked. I've always liked the back end of their defense. So and they did have it going a period last year, but that Hail Mary against the Commanders kind of completely derailed any momentum they had. So yeah, I'll go with the Bears, which is a bold choice, but yeah, why not?
I get that. I don't think they'll be because that division. I don't think they'll do great shakes, but I think that in a way is why they could be surprising because no one's expecting them in that division to go and with the strength of the Vikings, the Lions. I mean, between them they had 19 wins between them last season alone. Packers were a good little team. They're really well coached. So I think the fact that I think no one thinks they'll be higher than third in that division because of how tough it is. I think if they were to go there and win it or get into the playoffs and maybe go to the conference game or the divisional round, I think that would be definitely a surprise. So I think that's a good answer. Before we do end the show, I'll give you the chance, JP, to ask our next fan a question. Now, for those who are listening, we're not going to give away who the team is. We'd like to keep that bit a surprise, and to you as well, JP. So you have no idea which team's going to be coming up next. I know in my head, but you never know how things transpire. So, yeah, what is your question to our next guest?
I mean, I need to make sure I haven't answered asked a question no one hasn't answered yet. I'm a big college guy, so I'll go for who do you think will be offensive rookie of the year? Have you had that one before?
We haven't actually. No, we've had other ones, for example. Literally, my mind's gone blank as what question we've had, but I don't remember certainly having offensive rookie of the year. So there we are. Our first time you're hearing that. So we've had 2 times this year. We've had dark horse or surprise team. So yeah, first time we're getting offensive rookie of the year. So that is the end of the episode. Thank you first of all for JP for coming on.
No worries. Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
No problem at all. Now you have done some work in the past for the likes of the Times and the Athletic. So for those who would have heard the episode and thought, I like what you say, where can he find you on socials and find your work?
Yeah, just follow me on jp.mcgrath on Instagram. Shoot me a DM. I don't tend to go on the X app anymore. But if you do want to DM me on there, it's Irish Illustrated International. The tag is from a podcast I did covering Notre Dame football. But yeah, if you want to reach out and talk some NFL, talk some college ball, hit me up on Instagram for sure.
Great stuff. So if you want to do that, go ahead and give that man a follow. But in the meantime, this has been the Across the Pod NFL Podcast 2025 Indianapolis Colts season preview. I have been, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, with our guest in Colts fan JP McGrath, and we'll see you guys for our next season preview. Take care.